So this may be new to some of you guys, and some of you it may not be. I posted a very short clip of a short story I was working on a long time ago. I don't think a whole lot of people listened to it. But I decided to kind of take it to the next level, and I've been working on it for a while now, and I would like to, if the interest is there, to basically have an episodic podcast, so to speak. I'm going to use the YouTube format right now just because I'm familiar with it, and if people want it to be in just an audio only, something that they can download on like Podbean or potentially iTunes later on, that's what I want to do. And so each week or every other week you'd come and there'd be this story for you to listen to, whether, driving in your car or whatever. And there's, as of right now, there's 3 characters or narrators, one of which is a woman, so bear with me on that. And also I'm going to let you know via visual cues on the screen when the narrator changes. So if you are watching this via YouTube, occasionally you'll see like a background image change to let you know that a different person's talking. I will try to change the inflection of my voice as much as possible without it sounding ridiculous, and we'll see what happens. So very, very much appreciate your feedback on this. This is kind of like a Destiny fan fiction work, so keep that in mind, and hope you guys enjoy. The Forsaken, Prologue. When it happened, we didn't notice. At least not instantly. The giant white orb had been here for so long we didn't look at it anymore. We never thought it could leave, but it did. I was in the tower when a hush fell over all of us, and then screams of terror as word spread. The traveler was gone. The speaker briskly walked from his study and approached the railing, seeming just as surprised as the rest of us, as though he may have never had real contact with the traveler. Zavala commanded us all to stay calm, but everyone turned their attention to the speaker. Speechless, he stood at the railing with the rest of us. We stood staring into a new future, and just as he blended with the crowd, the speaker had lost his power. We were alone again, and no one expected what happened next. The pioneers of the group immediately ran outside the tower and attempted to use our abilities the traveler had bestowed upon us. They still worked. We were still incredibly powerful beings. Others began strategizing how to defend the city without the traveler's presence and expected the darkness to overcome us in days. There was no attack beyond our normal struggles. There was no opportunistic strike on our home soil. We were beginning a new chapter for us all. One without the need for a speaker, one that didn't need the strict tenets that connected us to the traveler or beliefs that put some above others. The darkness, we later found out, was simply an existence of balance, not an aggressive, driven threat to our existence. We were our own enemies, and our greed became a much more violent enemy than we had ever faced. I was the first to volunteer to both recon a local group of fallen Dreg and allow myself to be killed. We knew our abilities were still intact, but without the traveler, could we still be revived? Yes, we could. So now, a few weeks after the traveler's absence, we all realized we were no different than before. Humanity was still in a fragile existence, trying to find purpose in a new world with new rules. But now we had no traveler and needed no speaker. What was a tenuous balance between factions, classes, and races were growing into a cauldron of turmoil waiting to bubble over. We descended into past allegiances. The new monarchy, Dead Orbit, and future war cult continued their conquest to mold the world in their images using Guardian blood. The Vanguard was at a stalemate with one another as well as the Cryptarch who they looked to for historical guidance. Suddenly, we weren't concerned with the Hive, Vex, or Fallen. We had a civil war beginning and doing the only thing that seemed sane. I left. I walked away into the wilderness. A rogue titan. Those were not common words, but these were not common times. Chapter 1. Dakin, the Titan. A month since the traveler left, and 3 days since leaving the tower, I was met with conflict. The ruins of old Russia had always been full of fallen, and of course the caves full of Hive, but this was different. I came over to the crest of a hill looking over the steps and saw a guardian peering at a darkened corpse lying on the ground. As I moved forward, he saw me and dematerialized. A titan enveloped onto himself and then reappeared in the opening of the wall, his silhouette up against the ruins of old Russia. Then he was gone. I rushed to aid the person who was lying blackened and vacant. The hunter cloak was tattered as it draped around his body. His ghost lay next to him, also vacant of light. A titan had killed a fellow guardian, drained him and his ghost of light, and blinked hundreds of feet across the cosmodrome. I wanted to say I felt devoted to the tower or to the people, but I was just curious, intensely curious, and so I followed. Leaving the tower without purpose left me to seek my own. Seeing this threat and its possibilities instilled me with dread and purpose. A purpose that would drive me to not only find the Titan, his cult, his leader, and realize, without a traveler to follow or a new enemy to fear, the Guardians have looked to the beyond for guidance. Where some people seek, others lead. Peering from the old ruins at night, overlooking the divide and the sleeping masses of fallen was chilling. A field, buildings, a hole in a wall that worms further from civilized places of earth. The kings had resided there before we cleared them out of the tower. It was easier to creep across the divide and into the wall than to try to kill them all. I could see no reason for retreat. To go back to a life that may not exist anymore. I pushed forward and continued my way into the opening in the wall. Once inside, there were some fallen, but none seemed to care I was there. Even more coward as I walked by. Had the other Titan come through here as well? What had he done to the fallen here? Then I saw their captain, laying black just like the Guardian. Several dragon vandals briskly stepped aside as I knelt down beside the captain. One of the vandals, hesitant and full of fear, stepped forward. His speech was broken and almost snake-like, but I understood him. The Titan did this. He went to the dark tower overlooking where the kings once ruled. He is not of the light. Fear his mind. Fear his thoughts. Nodding, I stood and thanked him, and made my way to the edge of the wall. I had heard there was a time when the fallen were more civil. They were not always the fallen, and they were of a higher thought, compassion, civility, and purpose. Draylen, the most knowledgeable and possibly the most dry and calculated warlock I've ever met, had taught me about the past. Not our past, though. I know my past. No, he educated me in the old ways, the old hive, the old fallen, the vex. It took immense fear for the fallen to seek me as an ally, but I believe I just saw into their past. I saw a glimpse of what the fallen used to be, and it took one of them sensing their death was definite. Possibly he believed all of our deaths were. A river of Golden Age vehicles rusting in the morning sun lay before me as I stepped out of the wall. The horizon unchanged from the last time I was here, laying waste to the last of the kings. Unchanged except for a tower in the distance. Not a tower, but a mirage, wavering not here, but there? Is it floating? As I progressed across the fields of rust, I began seeing a change of vegetation. The grass and dirt became more metallic. The ground crunched beneath my feet as the metallic feel evolved to a glassy, smooth clink. The ground around the tower as I approached was black and void of all life. The tower was, in fact, floating. It was also not there. It wasn't anywhere, it seemed. It shimmered, gloss black, and in a hard vertical diamond. The lines of the walls were so hard I thought if I touched the corners they would slice my hand, my heart, my light. I stood in awe, within a few feet of the tower, realizing it was apparent, but not physically existing here. But the lines, oh, the edges were distinct, but the tower just wavered. This was madness to look at, and I was drawn to it. I tried to walk, then run around it looking for a way in. The tower did not allow me in, or at least not show a way in. As I ran, it seemed to always be turning away from me, but it never turned. The edges never moved, but always stayed out of my grasp, and then there was black. Nothingness. No. Black exists and can be seen. There was truly nothing. Sink, the Hunter. When Dakin returned to the tower alive, we were hopeful. When he spoke of his ghost reviving him, his powers not waning, that nothing had changed, we were all grateful for his possible sacrifice. We wanted to discuss it with him, make sure nothing had changed, but he was gone the next day. He had disappeared, and we were left fearful, wondering if he had left or if he died. Maybe it just took time for his light to fade, maybe something else. Regardless, it took several weeks before anyone else ventured out of the tower to test our powers again. I guess it made more sense they would ask the Hunter when no one else volunteered, but why the hell did it have to be me? I was sent on the same rudimentary trip as Dakin. Go to Cosmodrome, find Fallen, let them kill you, hopefully revive. I flew down in the usual expanse near the steps. There were Fallen across the landscape. Take your pick, Sink, I told myself. It seemed more fitting that I would strut to my death, just in case it was a final one. Always go out in style when it's an option. It felt good to fight again. After stagnating for weeks in the tower, getting out and killing a few table scraps was nice. We'd all been held in captivity. The speaker, seeing people beginning to panic again, was so gracious to lock the doors to the tower while informing everyone that it is okay to leave, but the protection of the tower would not be with them. No one had left since Dakin, not until now. I still don't know what happened to Dakin, but if he left on his terms, I can see why. I could never stay behind a wall and wait, but it is still curious to see a Titan have the same passion as a hunter. If he is out here with me, I will tread softly. I killed so many fallen. Don't worry, I died too. I did my duty. Once that was done, I stayed and toyed with the fallen for days. Once enjoyment was gone, considering there was no challenge to these little monsters, I reported back to the tower against my own reservations. The speaker has always made me uneasy. When he felt like he had lost his tether to us, he'd become shaky. The speaker had seemed weak and devoid of any motivation. He just stood existing in his place in the tower, until Dakin didn't return, and he was able to convince the masses to fear something again. That's why I came back. I didn't want him having any more control. The speaker had too much power, too much say over us. Approaching the gate of the tower and seeing it missing, I was in panic. The idea that the speaker or the vanguard would have just opened the gates and everything was great was unlikely. I was right. I stood at the gate in awe, gaping open. The tower gate seemed torn off, but was nowhere to be seen. The rest of the tower was untouched, only worn from the weather that had been allowed in by the hole in the wall. Bodies were scattered across the entirety of the tower. Guardians were strewn about like toys or ghosts, laying next to them, dark and lifeless. The other people of the tower, even the children, were dead, blackened and lifeless. The immediate area around each corpse was glassy and black. I collapsed to my knees, feeling defenseless. What could have done this? Draylen, the warlock. Is it possible to hear death? Is it felt? Is it seen? Once death has happened, is it anything? Am I dead? So many questions, no answers. The man I saw did not speak to me. He addressed the speaker before he killed him. Did he kill him? I don't know what happened to us, to him, to them. I can think, therefore I am. I read that somewhere. Hope it's right. But before I became this, let's discuss the occurrence that caused this. Dakin had been gone for weeks, and we were left to decide what to do. Lacking decisiveness, the speaker sent Sink, that young lady, into the wild. I don't understand this. Dakin proved we had power. Any other time in life or unlife or my consciousness, I would say wait, study, plan, attack. Not now. We are at the disadvantage. If we don't push now, someone else will. We were too late. Someone else did. The great door near the speaker fizzed and popped, and then we were deaf. Those closest saw the absence of the gate, and then it was in shreds, exploding across all of us. People, non-guardians, screamed as they ran to the vanguards. The guardians came to the line. At the same time, he, or it, came floating in. Shrouded in layers of black robes, it slowly approached the gate, popped out of existence, and then seemed to step through air itself next to the speaker. And then the speaker was gone. With a thundering, deafening boom, the tower was blackened, and then I could see the void light consume everything. I saw the air, life itself, splitting open, and all of us being pulled and torn between ourselves. Then quiet. Then thought. Then this.